Greetings, 8th graders. This is your beloved teacher, Mrs. Bartell, starting out a lecture on what we refer to as the Gilded Age. If you know what the word gilded means, then you're ahead of the ball game. But in this case, it means something that is beautiful on the outside and potentially rotten on the inside, such as the picture frame that you see here. It is beautiful gold on the exterior and carved and painted, but it is just wood on the inside. It is not solid gold. What it shows on the outside is beautiful, beautiful, and on the inside it is not. So you might think to yourself, well, what does this picture frames have to do with anything in age and history? Well, this particular time in history had a lot of glitz and gold on the outside, but there were a lot of rotten things going on in the inside. The name came from Mark Twain, who was a famous author, and it just stuck around and became a term for a period in history. Okay. This is a period of history where there's a great deal of corruption, and people were very, very sick of government. Kind of like now. The idea of a Gilded Age said that people who were greedy, people who wanted more, people who just would never be satisfied with anything, would become involved in politics, and that you could not be in politics without becoming corrupt and without thinking about what is only important for yourself first. So that would definitely be a problem. Ironically, the founders of our Constitution understood this. They said that people could not be just allowed to govern without any responsibilities or anybody to check. And as we talked about with the shutdown of the federal government, we have a limited government that has a separation of powers between the executive government, the legislative government, and the judicial branch. Okay? Economists, or people who deal with money, they also understood that people should be kept in check too, because if they didn't, if they weren't kept in check, then this would create a problem. And in economics, there's a term called the invisible hand, and it's thought that there was an invisible hand guiding the market that would keep business people in check. Now, when you look at the late 19th century, you're looking at a lot of things here. You're talking about the beginnings of capitalism. Remember, we talked about capitalism as the one who dies with the most stuff at the end wins. You've got the Industrial Revolution. You have the invention of electricity. You have all sorts of important things happening. We have the transcontinental railroad. So communications and transportation is just booming. People can get where they want to go much faster. You have the standard of living increasing, meaning that there were more people in the United States who were living better. There weren't as many poor people. You have changes in economics. You have the beginnings of the stock market and factories, and the whole idea of how people make a living changed. You have depressions. Okay, you have economic depressions where people were not making any money. You have an influx of immigrants, lots and lots of immigrants coming to the United States on those streets paved with gold. And that there were so many jobs. People would come for land and they would realize the land was all gone, so they'd have to stay in the cities. But there were plenty of jobs in the cities. People were moving to the south, moving to the west, and starting up farms and taking the Native American peoples out of those areas and settling them with European Americans. We talked about the cattle farming and how much money people made with cattle farming. We talked about how people turned deserts into good farming. You have the Populist Party, the rise of urbanization in cities. Political machines, something that we're going to talk about, is they were people who created this whole intricacy of moving parts in politics. That's why they call it the political machine. And imperial aspiration. That means that the United States decided that they were going to spread out and no longer just be in North America, that there were other places that could be discovered. Hey, you have a lot of very, very wealthy people. You have Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Carnegie. You've heard of Rockefeller Center, Carnegie Hall, J.P. Morgan, Charles Schwab, Mellon, all bankers. Okay, these are all people who came from, some came from old money, some came from nothing and worked their way up. We call them the titans of business because they really came in and took advantage of all of the new discoveries that were going on. Now, this was something that that people were really still wondering. Were these guys robber barons or were they captains of industry? A robber baron is somebody who steals other people blind. And on the one hand, they looked like they were greedy. They exploited the workers with long hours and child labor and not paying women as much as men and not paying the people in the factories enough. They were tied closely with government people. They had a lot of politicians right in their back pocket. You do this for me, I do this for you. That, in turn, destroyed democracy. How can you have a country that is for the people, by the people, if you have the rich titans of industry buying up all the votes? And were they creating unsafe products? Did they have unsafe products? Did they have environmentally poor products? Were they taking advantage of consumers because consumers wanted to buy all this new stuff? Or you could also say this: were they captains of industry? Were they good? Did they help people get great jobs? Did they provide for all of the people by being able to make lots of toasters in a small amount of time? They were providing for the masses. They produced better lives for all. For the first time, everybody could afford a car. Consumers could leave. They had much more time when they purchased goods. They didn't have to buy them anymore, so they could have much more leisure time. And were these guys just philanthropists, Bill Gates is a philanthropist? Are they just somebody who gave a whole bunch of money, which they did do? They gave a lot of money. Okay, this was also a time of conspicuous consumption. Okay, you had people building these ridiculous ridiculously huge houses. If you go along Summit Avenue in St. Paul, many of the houses there were built in this time, in the late 1800s. These brick, monstrous houses. They said that some of these titans of industry were just commoners with the audacity of acting like aristocrats. So were they acting like kings and queens in the United States? And a lot of people said that they were. The picture on the top right, the black and white picture, is taken of a place on Summit Avenue, the James J. Hill House. He was a very wealthy railroad baron. They had places that you could look at now that compared to, Madonna's house and all of these rich, wealthy Kardashian type people. And people looked at it and said, wow, do they really need that? And should they think that are they really that important? Now, we have from 1668 to 1900, there were 8 presidents, 6 Republicans. 2 of those had lost the popular vote. 5 from Ohio, 2 from New York. Okay, so they're from the manufacturing area in the north. The Republican Party had the presidency and both houses from 1889 to 1891, only a 2-year period. And then the Democrats had all 3 from 1893 to 1895. If you can see, those are, like we talked before, if people are unhappy with one house, they tend to clean all the houses and start all over again. So you have a push from 1889 to 1891, boom, all Republicans, and then it flip-flops 2 years later. The GOP, or the Republican Party, held 7 of the 10 Senate seats, and the Democrats held 8 of the 10 House seats. Even the Republican Party was divided. Okay, you have radicals versus liberals, stalwarts versus half-breeds. They really didn't know what they were talking about. They all had their own special interests. Patronage means that the person who is in charge in the White House gets to hand out jobs and decide who gets what. You've got farmers getting the Homestead Act, veterans got pensions, and manufacturers got tariffs or taxes. Democrats owned the South. Okay? They held the border states, the southern pathway to the west, northern cities because of the Irish, that strong work ethic. We had party bosses ruling. You had the idea of patronage, giving, as I said, giving people jobs after they were replaced. You have also that old phrase, to the victor go the spoils. That was Andrew Jackson who said that if you win, too bad everybody else is out of luck. I'm going to stop here on this lecture, and we will take it up later.